Hello, today we're going to talk about how to shop for paperweights. They make lots of different kinds of paperweights, but one of the interesting things about paperweights is they made them very early, in the early to mid 1800s, all the way through up to yesterday. Paperweights are always lots of fun. There were especially a lot of fun if you turn out to have bought one and it turns out to be worth a tremendous amount of money. Because it's very difficult to pick out one that is clearly old. A paperweight that's old looks to a great degree like a paperweight that's more modern. But the difference is, if it was made by Baccarat in 1850, then it's going to be worth a tremendous amount of money. And so if there were, especially the French companies, Clichy, Baccarat, St. Louis, were, heavy. They made a tremendous amount of paperweights. So some of these, you can really get a kind of a clue as to when they might have been made, because the shape of them. And the shape of them, when I talk about the shape, I'm talking about some of them are cut off like this, which is very far up the sphere. And some of them are cut off a little different, like this one, which is not so much, not cut so high. And this book, which is called Encyclopedia of Glass Paperweights by Paul Hollister Jr., explains that. It explains that, for instance, if they are St. Louis paperweights, then they are usually shaped like this and cut off right about there. If they are Baccarat paperweights, then they will look more like this, which is, as I said, cut off a little higher. So the profile is different, and that's one of the tip-offs when you're shopping for paperweights in an antique store, where the paperweight clearly is not new. That's one of the tip-offs. And like I say, they're very difficult. There's not many that were signed. Every once in a while you'd have some that are signed, particularly by the artist. But by and large, you really have to know what the really valuable old ones look like. Now, again, I can go back to this book, which has a tremendous, great amount of pictures of those kinds of paperweights. If they match these, buy it. This goes on and on, showing all the different kind of paperweights. And the thing of it is, they didn't really mass produce them. These were hand blown. So there weren't that many of them made. If they were making one like that or so, there weren't that many of them. And of course, being glass, a lot of them got broken between 18 something and now. And so they're pretty rare, but that's what contributes to their value. So these are old. I don't know how old, and I'm not going to sell them until I find out. These a lot of the ideas that were back in the olden days, for instance, the bubbles that were called placed bubbles, because they were a bubble that was induced into the glass to be in exactly a certain spot. Must have been quite a trick. They induce these bubbles. This is another one that shows just what they can do with induced bubbles and placed bubbles. So there are these. There are lots of ones with flowers in the middle, like that. And I always really look for a surface on the bottom that is polished smooth, because that was more of a, it's a little higher quality. If it's not polished smooth like this one or so on, right, then I'm put off, because I don't think that it was a really high quality piece. So, but paperweights are fun. Clearly, since the advent of air conditioning, we don't need paperweights near as much. In the old days, they all opened up all their office windows in the summertime, let the breeze blow through if they could. But nowadays, you don't need paperweights so much, but they're awful decorative, and they're very much an interesting thing. There are some that are baseballs, or shaped like baseballs. There are some that are really interesting, ornate flowers, again with a placed bubble. And for what they are, they're not expensive. Every once in a while you get one that's a little more expensive because it's a little more interesting. These also, incidentally, are placed bubbles, and each one of these little bubbles was placed in that position when the glass was still hot. So clearly it's going to be a little more expensive, because it's sure a little more ornate. Paperweights are lots of fun. You don't have to have a giant budget in order to be able to be a collector. And it's really addicting, so when you get into paperweights or so on, you can find yourself looking for that little more older one, or the little interesting one, and so on and so forth. And there's lots to choose from, and there are good prices nowadays. I think they probably won't be eventually, but they are right now. They're good buys. So anyway, good luck on your shopping for paperweights. Bye.